Avaksha Tevlach. Good morning, everyone. Today is Zos Chanukah, the final 8th day of Chanukah, where all the lights of the menorah are lit. And you say, how did we get to this point? Well, we started 8 days ago, and we added a candle, and now we have a fully lit menorah. But if you go further back, it all started in the year 164 BCE, when the Hashmonayim, the Maccabees, won the war. We found one little cruse of oil, lit the menorah, the holiday was born, because it burnt 8 days, and here we are 2,200 years later, still lighting the menorah. But the truth is, if you want to trace the origin of the story of Chanukah, you have to go back further. And that is not when the Maccabees recaptured the temple, but when the Greeks destroyed the temple, when they defiled it and contaminated it. And imagine the Kohanim, the priests, and those in the temple had to flee, because the Greeks were capturing it. But there was one priest, we don't even know his name. He's an unsung hero, who said, you know what, we're going to be back one day. And he went and he hid one little cruse of oil for the day when we will return. So there'll be one hidden cruse of oil to light when the Jews will return victorious. And that's what happened. That little cruse of oil that high priest hid was found, discovered, lit, burnt for 8 days, and the miracle of Chanukah was born, and it continues till this very day. And that's a very important lesson as we conclude the holiday of Chanukah. George Burns once said, I always plan for the future, because that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. You know, they say, you got to save for a rainy day. Just like you have to save money for a rainy day, there are other types of things you have to save. Because in this week's parsha, in last week's parsha, we read about the 7 years of famine, plenty, followed by the 7 years of famine. And what did Joseph say? Put away food in the years of plenty for the years of famine. And just like you have to put away material sustenance, you have to put away spiritual sustenance. You know, life has its cycles. Everyone goes through the cycles of life. There are years of plenty, health, happiness, success. And then, unfortunately, there's always going to be cycles of difficulty, of challenges, of hardships. And the way to get through the years of famine is by storing spiritual sustenance during the years of plenty. Sometimes when life is good, we forget to develop our connection to Hashem, our relationships with others. And then when we go through a difficult period, we don't have the relationships to lean on with our spouses, with our children, with our grandchildren, with Hashem, to get us through the years of famine. So in the years of plenty, don't be distracted by the plenty. Make sure you invest in your relationship with God. You can't discover your relationship with God suddenly when you're sick. You have to find it when you're healthy, and then it will nurture you and sustain you during your years of, God forbid, challenges. Same thing in every situation. Like, make sure you have good relationships with your family members, with your friendships. Invest in those relationships, because they are the relationships that will carry you through the years of famine. I'll tell you just a concluding story, a true story. One of the famous heroes of our generation, of course, is Natan Sharansky. And he wrote a book called Fear No Evil, based on Psalm 23. Gam ki elech b'geit salmovas, even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil because you are with me. That psalm got him through his years in the Gulag in Siberia. And he says that one year on Chanukah he managed to get him, somehow make a little menorah out of some candles. And he lit the menorah in his prison cell in Siberia, where he was imprisoned for being a refusnik, for wanting to go to Israel. And the guards immediately came in and he said, what is this? Religious services in the prison, not allowed. They confiscated his menorah and they walked away with it. Immediately Natan Sharansky said he declared a hunger strike. He said, till I get my menorah back, I'm going on a hunger strike. Went 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He says the last day of Chanukah, the prison warden, his name was Major Osen. He was very concerned that he may die, God forbid, and he'll hear from Moscow that they let a famous prisoner die. So he says Major Ozen calls him into his office in the prison. And he calls him and he says, come on, what's going on here? He says, well, I won't eat until you give me back my menorah. He says, next year we'll plan ahead, we'll make arrangements, everything will be okay. He says, no, today's the 8th day of Chanukah. I want to light the menorah now, tonight, for the final day of Chanukah, the Zos Chanukah, the last day. Major Osen says, it's too late this year, maybe next year. And then Sharansky said he realized that Major Osen couldn't back down in the face of all the prisoners, because he would look like a weakling. He would lose his power in the prison. So he said, you know what, Major Osen? Why don't you just take out the menorah? I'll light it right here in your office. No one has to see. Just let me light my menorah. And he says, Major Osen opens up a drawer and takes out his menorah. And he takes out the one candle that Sharansky had on that first night of Chanukah. And he says, okay, go ahead, light your menorah. And Sharansky said, I need 8 candles tonight. He says, I don't have candles. So Sharansky said, do you have a knife? He said, yeah. He took a knife and he cut the candle into 8 pieces and he set up the menorah. And Sharansky said he had to put his cap on, closed his eyes, and recited all the blessings over the menorah. And after he recited the last blessing, he said a prayer, and he said, Almighty God, may I merit next year to be reunited with my wife Avital in Jerusalem and light the menorah in Yerushalayim. And when he finished saying that blessing, he said, and let us respond, Amen. And suddenly he hears someone in the room say, Amen. And he looks up, and it's Major Osen, who himself was a Jew, and responded Amen to Sharansky's prayer. And then Sharansky went from that gulag, immigrated to Israel, was reunited with his wife Avital, ultimately became a minister in the cabinet of the state of Israel, ultimately became the head of the Sochnut, and went on to live a beautiful life with his family in Yerushalayim. How do you get through the dark years, through the difficult years? When you nurture your faith in the years of plenty. And then you go through the year, from the years of plenty to the years of famine, and you arrive and come out of those years of famine, and you re-experience the years of plenty. Let us take the light of the menorah, the plenty, and let it shine with us all year long.